Hi, welcome to Undisputed Boxing with Rick and Ave. We're here to review last night's action, Alexander Usyk versus Derek Chisora, and a couple of the other fights as well. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. We're going to continue to try and build as much as we can on review and previewing all the big fights that are coming up. So last night, Alexander Usyk versus Derek Chisora. I think it's probably safe to say it went as most people that are knowledgeable on boxing thought it went. Derek Chisora came out firing for the first 2 or 3 rounds with that overswinging right that he has, telegraphing that right hand. I think Alexander Usyk, he did look uncomfortable, to be fair, for the first 2 or 3 rounds, and he's visibly the smaller man, but I think. Once he started to get a read on him, he was stepping back, pivoting in angles, and really just started to put his combinations together. And I think for me it was just a routine win, and I think I scored it 9-3. And just for everybody's, I guess for your information, I actually didn't have any commentary, so I actually was watching it with Russian commentary, so I didn't benefit or have the disadvantage of any biased commentary. And I was quite baffled to hear some of the commentaries teams saying that they had it as a draw, or maybe Chisora just nicked it. But yeah, I don't know. How did you see it, Rick?
I mean, I had it 1-1-16, 1-1-12, which is the equivalent of like an 8-4. So I gave Chisora one more round than you did. And the scorecards that came through were 1-1-15, 1-1-13, 2 on that. And then there's a 1 that was similar score to me, but they've obviously given a 10-10 round in there as well. So similar, I think. Yeah, I mean, you go back to our predictions. I mean, you were kind of like 90% sure it'd go this way. I was like 70%, because just seeing how Usyk dealt with it, really. And the power, and I do think he was uncomfortable in the first 2 or 3 rounds. Yeah. But I don't think he quite did enough to really ruffle his feathers. I think the only thing that surprised me a little bit was, I mean, after 6 rounds, I had it 4-2 to Usyk, and I thought at that point Chisora probably won't get stopped. There was 1 round where he was wobbling a bit. But I just thought it will now peter out. And he did have a bit of a second wind, and he did cause Usyk a bit more trouble towards the end. I think I gave him round 10 and 11 as well. But really, you never felt Usyk was over uncomfortable other than those first couple of rounds, which we were all expecting. And then he just kind of took a lead, and he was never going to lose it. So, yeah, not spectacular. And I think, Del Boy looked a bit desperate towards the end, a bit amateur with some of his swinging. Yeah. And I know Hay was on about, he'll be able to do this for 12 rounds. He did, but not the intensity of the first 3 rounds. It basically went full pelt for the first 3 rounds. Then he had to drop a few gears, and then it went back up slightly towards the end. And that was it. You can't keep that full pelt, 12 rounds. I know they all build up to say you can't. And I thought it was impressive in terms of his movement, but not what I hadn't seen before. I think the way he dealt with the a bigger man was impressive, and the big question mark. Looking back, is Chisora the right person to show him what real heavyweight's about? To some degree, but I'm still left a bit of. I don't think he's going to march through the others. It didn't leave me with a thought of he's now going to march through AJ and Fury and any of the others, really. I think it's another ball game with those guys. I think it's the same kind of size difference, but the skill level, speed, and footwork of those two are better. Yeah, so be interesting. But yeah, fair play to him. Fair play to him.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's definitely an improved Derek Chisora. I mean, we could all probably agree to that. I mean, we've seen some pretty poor performances over the years and have been left very disappointed over time. But the last, sort of 3 or 4 years, as I alluded to, in our first video, he has had a bit of a renaissance and has put in some really, epic performances. The Dillian White fights obviously spring to mind, in the Carlos Takam. He's really, it's almost like it feels like his career is coming to an end. He's like, right, I need to get as much as I can now before
he was turning southpaw. as well. He was turning southpaw a couple of times in the fight, which was bizarre. And it didn't look. He was having a bit of success with his jab. I think it threw him out, threw Usyk out a bit. But then he was a bit susceptible to the left hook even more when he did that. So yeah, pockets of it was a bit strange. But you get that with Del Boy, don't you? It's always a bit out there. Thought I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are of this, but you know, the fact that he came out thinking he'd won, and Hay thought he'd won, and Bellew was, he can see why the scores went the way they did, but he thought he could have won as well. And Hearn, you know, I just think it was a bit desperation, a bit heart over head. Weird.
I think so, yeah. But I mean, it's down to the cornerman. You know, the cornerman, they're directing the fight. And I think if they're coming, you know, I think probably one of the first things that a fighter will say when they come back to the corner is like, did I win that round? Or, you know, how am I doing? You know, how am I doing? And I think that's just maybe down to, you know, the cornerman. I don't know how they could, you know, see that he would have been, you know, winning that fight, to be honest. But no, you know, fair play to him. But I do think. Go on.
They have said his manager. I mean, I've not heard his manager say this, but apparently his manager has said he thought it was a draw. So even someone in his camp thinks it was close. But a lot of it depends what you like. But I mean, it was pressure, but it wasn't. I thought his body shots were quite good. He seemed to slow it down a little bit with the body shots, but just couldn't really give him any more than 4 rounds. I could maybe see the 115, 113, but even that I think is a push. To some degree. The commentary, actually, the UK commentary, because I watched it on Box Office, I paid for it, it wasn't that biased to Chisora. If anything, I was getting peed off with Macklin because he just seemed to be, you know, I think Macklin gave Usyk the first round, which I definitely didn't really do anything.
No, I gave the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, he was just like, oh, Usyk's a different level here. And he just kept talking about him as a different level. But in the early fight, I saw it very quite even. And I knew it was the period that Usyk had to get over. So I didn't think, oh, this is terrible for Usyk. And then between rounds, they were just showing shots that Usyk would land. So the Sky were quite high on Usyk. It wasn't a kind of a Del Boy bombardment, which you might have expected. So yeah, I don't think that there was any bias really in the commentary. It's probably slightly over the other way.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, this is also kind of clever marketing as well, isn't it, for Sky? Because they know that he's on a collision course with AJ, and I think it's important for them to almost kind of market Usyk as like the, you know, potential, you know, real world class, you know, operator. And if they do the, you know, the Usyk or the Joshua Usyk fight next year, you know, obviously it'll be on pay-per-view, but you know, they'll obviously want to sell it and spin it as much as they can. So I think there's a part, you know, there's a small part of that. And that sounds a bit cynical, but I do think there's a bit of that going on. But
what do you think? That, you know, what have they got next? What do you think their next paths, next fights for both of them?
I think for Usyk, obviously they're just going to push now for the title fight with AJ. It doesn't seem like they're going to be willing to take a step aside money. So AJ will either have to fight him in maybe April, May time, or he'll have to drop the belt. So
if he drops the belt, who do you see? I mean, Usyk has to fight Dubois, or the winner of Dubois-Joyce.
Yeah, that's basically what would happen, which is a bit farcical, really.
Yeah.
But I just don't think he's going to be willing to drop the belt. I can't see. You know,
I think if it comes to Tyson Fury, I think if it comes to fighting Fury or dropping the belt, he'll fight Fury. I actually think that they'll find some way of keeping the belt for the Fury fight and drop it for any rematch. I think the WBC will be the same. I think they'll fight for all the belts, and then the next day they'll go, or 2 of them will go, and they'll have a rematch. But yeah, I think Joshua would drop a belt if it came to fighting Fury.
Yeah, strong possibility, I think. But
so yeah, Usyk probably Joshua or Dubois/Joyce. Yeah. And then what do you think for Del Boy? He says he's not retiring, so
Yeah, I mean, why would he? I mean, he's just had, what could be regarded, apparently it's a successful pay-per-view night. He's probably still got another 3 or 4 fights, left in him. And I think he'll be one of those kind of gatekeepers. He'll be ranked, what is he, top 20, 25. He can still mix it. He can still earn some good money. I mean, I do think that was a very, very weak pay-per-view. I mean, I don't think we should talk about it for too long but like as a pay-per-view event, I thought it was pretty weak.
Well, the main event, you can argue, in this climate's pay-per-view, but yeah, the backing card. I mean, that Selby fight, which we will get onto, should have been something like number 3 or 4 in the order, and there should have been should be 1 or 2 fights in between that fight and the main event. Really,
yeah.
It's definitely one that's better in between, But I think Del Boy will. I mean, he's in a good position, really, because he could, my view is always, as long as he doesn't get like made to look a fool, and though he did lose the fight, and actually it's good for him that some people are saying it's closer and all this stuff. So he's not really dropped any value, so he can probably, whether his next fight's pay-per-view, it depends who it is, but he could walk into depending what happens with it, he could fight Dubois or his name?
Joyce.
Who's Dubois fight? Joyce next, and that would be on pay-per-view, and it's almost a game.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he would be a good opponent for the winner of that, but to have that as pay-per-view, I just think is a bit of a cheat.
Well, if you think that Joyce and Dubois was going to be pay-per-view,
yeah,
then Chisora definitely would be. I'm not saying it should be. I'm just saying in the way they're doing pay-per-views nowadays, if it's heavyweight and there's some half decent names in there, it's pay-per-view, isn't it? That's the way it goes. So Joyce versus Chisora would be pay-per-view next year.
Yeah.
I think Chisora will take. I think he'll only look for a big fight now. I don't think he'll normally. When he got beat off White, he kind of dropped down and went back up. I don't think he'll do that now because he didn't get flattened. He's not lost any of his value because he didn't get flattened and he put up an okay performance. Yeah. So I think he'll look for another pay-per-view. I think it will come from the woods.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't a make or break fight for Chisora. He wasn't expected to win. He's still actually only 36. I mean, he has lost 10 fights now. But yeah, I think he'll just remain as one of those kind of gatekeepers. And, he seems to get on pretty well with Matchroom. So I think there'll always be a fight somewhere around the corner for him. Yeah.
And the way David Hay was talking, I saw an interview with him. He was like, made me laugh. He was like, that's the first fight he's ever properly trained for. So really, we just build on that. This is the start of his career kind of thing. Like, hang on a minute. Yeah. Surely he's only got a few fights left in him. At some point, he will, if he fights Dubois and gets cleaned out, I mean, that'd be a great fight, Chisora Dubois. I'd love to see it because Dubois is kind of raw and be open, and Del Boy's not hard to hit, and both will come swinging. So that'd be a good fight. But I think if he got flattened by someone like Dubois, he then is out of pay-per-view range, and then he'll probably go, sod it. I think when he falls out of pay-per-view range this time, he'll probably knock it on the head. I don't think Hay wanted to be involved with someone who's not pay-per-view.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, all right, cool. So that's that one. Did you see any other fights on the card?
I saw the ranking fight. But I'll be honest, I wasn't scoring it. But it didn't matter anyway because it got finished. What's her name? Ranking and who was the other lady?
Hannah Marshall, was it?
Marshall and Rankin. But yeah, I wasn't really. But again, it was quite a good fight. I mean, I think the ladies' boxing it's not the level yet of men's, but it's a bit like football. It's getting closer, and they go for it. They absolutely go for it, and it's actually pretty entertaining. And it's not crap quality. So most of the ladies' fights I've seen this year have been pretty good. But yeah, nothing really to go on anymore on that, other than it's another another British
Yeah.
female champion. The Selby fight, I saw that one.
Yeah.
Like Kambosos. I think I had it how the score the judges had it. I had Kambosos winning that.
Yeah.
I think Selby's just. I always felt Kambosos just had him. Do you know what I mean? He just ended the exchanges stronger, and he's getting caught with a jab a bit. But yeah, I thought Kambosos was the winner. Tight, but I don't know. I think Selby's just now past his sell-by date a bit. And I just don't think he's aggressive, and I don't think he's got the power that you need. I think Kambosos will get flattened by Lopez, though.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, Selby has stepped up 2 weight divisions. You know, to lightweight. I mean, he was at featherweight. He was never really knocking people out, but he did. He was very.
Yeah, he wasn't a big puncher then.
No.
Yeah.
And at 33,
but
I mean, you'd have to say
33.
it probably is the end of the line for him now, to be honest, which is a real shame because I do think, you know, we maybe didn't see the best of Lee Selby. Him and Andrew Selby, his brother, I think, you know, both of them were incredibly talented, you know, really, really skillful boxers. But we just never really saw them in the big fights, you know, under the big lights and any of those big domestic fights. So I thought it was a little bit of a shame, really. Be interesting to see where they go. But yeah. All right, cool. Let's wrap it up. So yeah, join us again next week. We're going to talk about Anthony Joshua fighting Kubrat Pulev, and then Daniel Dubois against Joe Joyce. All right, take it easy.
We're doing that this week.
Yeah.
Doing it today.